Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. We'll be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 297, with Dr. Beth Martin, president of NDNU, Notre Namur University. There is recent news coming from NDNU. They have made a sale agreement to sell their historic campus and do that in partnership with University of California Investments. It's a really unique arrangement. Definitely check out the link in the episode description to kind of get more of the details on this. But Beth shares kind of reflections on how that came to be and what it means for the institution moving forward. It really enables them to embody more of what I think more institutions need to frankly do, of kind of really revisit and evaluate their physical footprint and how they can kind of get the resources to drive their growth in online education and just their kind of digital experience for students and being able to serve adult learners moving forward. A lot of really great stuff in this episode that I think is going to be really kind of indicative of the type of decisions and agreements and partnerships and just the networked approach that institutions are going to need to kind of navigate and interface with in the coming years. So please do enjoy this really informative episode, number 297, with Dr. Beth Martin. Well, I'm really excited for this conversation. It's a good opportunity, as I feel like we've been doing it in a couple of different ways to kind of get beyond the headlines, go a little bit deeper on some stories that are happening right now in the broader higher ed space. So, Beth, if you want to just quickly introduce yourself, go over a little bit of your professional background, and then we'll talk about kind of our topic of the day of sort of how your institution is navigating some unique partnerships to kind of keep persisting and serving your students.
I'm Beth Martin, and I'm president of Notre Dame de Namur University in Belmont, California. I've been in higher ed for, I hate to say this, but 40 years. Trained as a research psychologist and eventually also retrained as a clinical psychologist and taught at NDNU from 96 to 2001 as a faculty member in the graduate psych program. And then I became a dean, founding dean of their School of Sciences. And then I left in 2006 to become a chief academic officer. And the last 18 years, I've been a chief academic officer or provost or both. And then came back to my NDNU. I've always been extraordinarily fond of the institution, in particular the mission. And I came back as president in September of 2001. So I've had a research career, a teaching career, and I didn't actually plan to be in administration, but here I am, and I enjoy it.
Sounds like kind of just going where the wind takes you, or just sort of like, wherever opportunity you have to sort of serve and everything, and appreciating just, kind of all the experience that you're bringing to this conversation. And in particular, being president of NDNU for the past 4 years, kind of an interesting time to be in higher ed for all of us, but certainly as the president of an institution. So just as kind of a segue to get into our conversation, I guess thinking kind of personally, professionally, and everything, like over such a unique 4 years of leading an institution, what has that experience taught you, like generally, but then also about like the field of higher ed specifically?
Well, I think generally I had spent so much time already in administration that there were no real surprises. It's a very supportive institution. The Sisters of Notre Dame in particular are wonderfully supportive. They constitute a chunk of our board, so that's very stabilizing. So I guess I've learned that it doesn't matter where you are in administration, you always have to put the students first, always remember that you are a faculty member, even though you're a president. That's where you started, and you have to understand the needs of the faculty. And trying to assemble a good team. I think that in that regard, I've been extraordinarily fortunate. I have a terrific cabinet. And It was a little bit of a challenge when I started because there was really only one cabinet member. It was the provost, who I knew from 20 years ago. So that made it incredibly nice because he's been here 32 years. He has all of the historical knowledge of the institution. Everybody else is new. Everybody else I hired because there had been a huge layoff. When the traditional undergraduate residential program was closed, 60% of the faculty and 60% of the staff were laid off. It was in some ways nice because it was a clean slate and we could start building, but it was a little bit difficult in the sense that there was no bench, and we had to start deciding how to build that up. So it was also COVID. We still had to deal with that and all kinds of restrictions from the county on what we could do with and without masks. So that's always stressful for students in particular. But it's really been it's been a challenge, but it's been a wonderful challenge. And the whole point was to make sure that the mission of the sisters got carried on for another 175 years. Next year, we'll be celebrating our 175th year. So, what else is going on outside in higher ed just contributed to that. Everybody's struggling in so many ways, particularly now since a lot of grant funds are being retracted, and it's a tough time for higher ed.
I think it's helpful to kind of like normalize things and be like, hey, we're all kind of dealing with the same stuff, whether, you're a bigger institution or small, like there's similar problems, and just sort of like navigating how you're building a team or kind of working with them and, figuring out paths forward and everything. So I think kind of level setting sometimes where like, I think for better or worse, like sometimes it could be like, well, we're the most unique institution or whatever, and nobody kind of like can understand us, whatever. It's like, sure. Yeah. Like there are unique aspects to like, especially these like venerable institutions that have been around for a while. They might have some unique kind of culture and history, but like, one institution to another, like, and that's where I think kind of to build off of that, like, how NDNU is sort of moving forward, having this kind of unique sale partnership with University of California Investments, like, the idea of trying to figure out, like, how can we kind of acknowledge that, like, we're on the same team to an extent in higher education. We're all trying to kind of educate people, and there is obviously so much kind of movement around of students transferring and, kind of collaborations and different things. So I think I'm always excited to hear about and excited to certainly dig in kind of a little bit deeper with this sort of example. But like just anytime that I see institutions who are working together, kind of bringing sort of a networked approach where they can kind of recognize like, what are we good at? What can we maybe kind of let go of and move away from, and, find these partnerships where it can kind of reach greater heights together, and kind of rising tide lifts all ships and all those sort of platitudes and things. But like, this kind of unique sale and partnership, just to kind of start out, can you just explain a little bit about it and share how it came about?
UC Investments is so easy to work with. It's been really lovely. We had a traditional land sale. Once our traditional undergraduate population was gone, we had no need for 46 acres and 25 buildings. We serve what we call the post-traditional student. So our students are on average age 35. They have families, they're working. Even in our degree completion, our 2 degree completion programs, that's true, and in all of our master's programs, that's true. So it's a completely different model. It's really a paradigm shift, and I used to think of it as a 102-year-old startup. We've been on this land for 102 years, and it really was a startup. So we planned to sell the campus land. As you probably know, we were in an option to purchase agreement with Stanford, and they pulled out in February. And I actually received a call from the head of the vice president for UC California Investments. And he wanted to come and look at the campus, and we met and hit it off, and we have had a really good relationship, and went very quickly to a purchase and sale agreement. And UCI has just been remarkable in terms of how can we make this easiest for you. It's a psychological issue moving off a campus you've been on for 102 years. So we're actually staying on the campus for 5 more years while we transition, and they're going to be thinking about how they want to use it. We have a National Historic building, 2 buildings on campus. They are hoping to start with that and restore it. It used to be, before it had to be closed, it used to be a major attraction for the community. all kinds of events. So we're not actually partnering in terms of becoming part of them in any way, but I'm sure over time there may be things that we can do together, joint speaker series or whatever, joint conferences. But that really wasn't the motivating force. And they've made it particularly nice because we don't have to immediately leave. We can take our time to find out where we want to stay close by because we've been in the community so long and we serve this community well. So we intend to stay in the county and find another much smaller place to go.
Yeah, and I appreciate kind of the clarification there, and I'll make sure to link out to the kind of formal press release that kind of gets into some of these details and everything. But I think I was like, well, sale, kind of partnership, maybe like there's not like a good word, I guess, to kind of capture it. 'Cause I think there's a lot of nuances and kind of unique aspects to this. But I think, yeah, there could be the scenario where it's like, okay, yeah, like we're sort of abruptly kind of transitioning. It's really rough for us and maybe students and the community and whatever else. That like there is at least a little bit of that partnership in a sense of really, like you said, like they've just been very cooperative and sort of kind of empathetic about sort of these sort of transitory hurdles of kind of just navigating how best are we kind of navigating this, as an institution, the faculty and staff and our students and the community and, just the respect for all the stakeholders and all that. So I'm glad to hear that it's just been something that, has worked well in those areas so far. And, we're just a little bit outset from kind of the initial announcement here. But I think just maybe as you've kind of, reflected on this and, kind of thought through like the best ways to try to approach this, because I think just that you're valuing sort of your ability to continue to serve your students, your community, and everything, and just being open-minded about being what you all can kind of be in the future versus being like, okay, we're just really gonna stick with what served us the past over 100 years. Like we may just need to look a little bit different to continue to kind of persevere and survive and everything. So I think that's to your all's credit. But like with this sort of agreement with UC investments and everything, like what makes this so important for the future of the institution and the students?
Well, it's actually the sale of the land because we are essentially in Silicon Valley, and the land has appreciated enormously, as you can imagine, in the last 100 years. So it will set us up to be very stable financially instead of being very small. And we've been trying to grow our enrollment and been very successful at it. I think we've grown over 35% a year for the last 3 years, but we still need to be larger and want to be larger. So it basically is financial stability is what this sale is giving us, and while we continue to grow. So having had the support to say, well, you really don't need to find another place to live right away. You can stay here for 5 years and we'll support that. So that has made life very easy. During the last 4 years, we really have made an enormous pivot from a very traditional liberal arts undergraduate school, primarily with graduate programs, to a primarily adult graduate program with 2 degree completion programs. And I am so proud of our faculty and our staff because a few years ago we opened a Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, and there are 5 instructional designers in there. And the director is herself an instructional designer. And over the course of 3 years, we've put 85% of our programs online. We still have the option for students who want to come to campus to take classes on campus. We also gave them the option of taking hybrid courses, and then they can take fully online. So they have our population needs a tremendous amount of flexibility because of the fact that they have so many responsibilities, families and jobs. They need the convenience. So we've tried to make it as convenient as possible for them. Our clinical psych and our ed students like to come to campus periodically, so they can do that and have in-person classes. And then we have hybrid classes for people who want to come on campus sometimes, but other times want to come in virtually. And then we have students. Many of our students now are coming in fully online. But to be able to turn a fully face-to-face institution to 85% online in 3 to 4 years is just remarkable. The faculty and staff have been incredible.
All right, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Forsyth Technical Community College was juggling siloed systems, fragmented data pipelines, and manual workflows across marketing, admissions, and CRM operations. Then they deployed Bolt Agents, Element 451's AI workforce platform. The result? These agents handled over 80% of student inquiries independently, saving 183,060 human minutes and cutting call volumes by 14% within just 1 week of rollout. Curious what your AI teammates could look like? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents. Well, I guess it's like a brief follow-up to that. It's sort of like, because I want to try to glean some sort of lessons or insights or, things for other institutions or just sort of like this moment for higher ed. Because I guess it's the idea that like other institutions like yours may be trying to do the same things, but are kind of, tethered or anchored or sort of weighed down by their physical footprint and can't invest, the resources and things to grow in the ways or at the speed that they may want or need to. So it just sounds like that idea, like you're getting financial stability, but also resources that can continue to sort of fund your growth in the ways that you are seeing, are being, that your community is being responsive to, or is just, obviously a lot of higher ed is moving and kind of building out their digital education portfolios and everything. So I guess that idea of both, are you seeing this agreement as both like stability and as resources to fund and continue your growth?
Absolutely. And I will say that I have to give a lot of praise and thanks to the Sisters of Notre Dame themselves, because we presented our board, who then presented to their leadership team, not only a strategic plan, which is pretty standard in higher ed, but which is everybody has one. We also had developed a business plan, more along the lines of what you would see in Silicon Valley. And so between the two of them, there was an understanding of, we see you need funds to do this improvement. We see you need funds to develop the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, because there's no way you're going to get face-to-face curriculum online without some talented instructional designers. And they supported us in that, and they provided us with bridge financing to do those things until we got to the point of being able to sell the land. So we've had a lot of support, a lot of dedication to the mission. I often say, I praise my staff, and I say they could be anywhere. They don't have to be at Notre Dame de Namur, but they are here because of our mission, and they're very dedicated. So that made it easier. I wouldn't say it's easy. It's not easy for any institution right now. You probably saw the article, I think it was just 2 days ago, about how deferred maintenance is killing so many institutions of higher ed. That was taking a great deal of our budget, a huge amount of our budget, because we had a 100-year-old campus. And so now that's not in our budget anymore, because the land is owned by somebody else. So it is a huge relief.
Yeah, because I guess it's stability. I'm thinking of all this sort of like power where, is sort of indicative of this that I think others can maybe take inspiration from, of like kind of following a similar path or something, kind of akin to this, but like the stability, the sort of kind of empowerment, the resources to fund kind of what you need to do, but then even just the flexibility, because I think it's either like, you perpetually sort of defer maintenance, and then that's maybe really kind of impacting your ability to, create a positive student experience or one that's more kind of modern and relevant and that sort of thing. Or you're just sinking so much into doing those things because it's like, okay, we're at a breaking point. We have to do these things, even if we really don't want to, or we'd rather be spending that money somewhere else or something, just for wherever we're at. So I think it's just an interesting kind of thing. And I guess just from your background, your experience, and reading all those sort of headlines and things that are capturing this moment, like, do you think sorts of deals like this will become more of the norm? Because I think I've not seen as much about this kind of particular sort of arrangement. It is maybe just either kind of an outward, or totally going, in partnership, or selling to another institution, or merging, or you're just closing and there's not really a clear plan for what's happening afterward. But like, this feels really unique. But I think, do you see something like this maybe becoming more of the norm in the future?
I do, because I think the traditional student we're not going to see as many of the traditional students in the future as we saw in the past. And I thought there was the fact that the board had decided to close the traditional undergraduate population the year before I got there was actually a very gutsy move, but it was a little bit prescient. It was foresighted because, as you know, there's a huge. We're expecting a huge demographic cliff for the undergrad, and that will impact very heavily those institutions that are primarily traditional undergrad. So now that we've gone towards the adult student population, more and more of those individuals need to go back to stay up with their jobs and their careers. Of course, the cliff will eventually affect us too, because to get a graduate degree, you have to have an undergrad. But over 30 million people in the United States have partial undergraduate but never completed. So that's a population we want to serve as well. We're embedding AI in all of our schools so that the graduates have the tools they need to get hired when they get out. As that gets more and more prevalent, I believe that more and more adults who never completed their degree will be coming back for degrees and for advanced degrees. So we're in a position, we are now in a position to serve populations that we would never have been able to serve before, because we can do it at a distance. And our distance students are increasing in number. So I think we are in a good position. Whether or not that this is a solution for other folks depends, I think, honestly, on their location. It's very much harder to sell a piece of land in a rural area than it is in Silicon Valley. So I do think that it's an option for many institutions are in cities in Boston, New York, D.C. So I think if they have the ability to sell pieces of their land, it is one solution, because as you know, after COVID, and as we move forward into AI, we need to be in a set place less and less. We can do things virtually much more easily, and that's only going to grow. Being defined by place is not something that's going to serve a lot of students in the future, I believe.
Yeah, and I guess that is a good acknowledgement. I think that is like that idea of where you are would really inform how feasible something like this would be. But even just like there being value in some of these spaces and places, and if somebody can kind of have the vision for it, then it's like, yeah, maybe that wouldn't be this like huge kind of windfall that would allow like an institution to kind of, persist maybe in the same way they were before. But I think, yeah, like this feeling like, I guess sometimes like institutions will kind of announce these mergers where like there is like an acquiring institution, but they're really kind of honoring the name and the history and, physical place of the institution and keeping that a little bit more of the forefront. And that being kind of a flavor of something like this. But then even, if there's something like this elsewhere in the country where it's not sort of a dense urban center where kind of land is at a premium or something, it might be harder. But I think at least just my hope is like I was kind of saying before, like, institutions certainly kind of bringing a networked approach and working together and whatever else, like I think is really valuable and important to consider for the future of higher ed. And then like, just, I guess like that there can be a lot of sort of like optionality and sort of like, okay, we as an institution are trying to figure out how to kind of persist and survive and thrive, keeping an open mind about what that could look like of like even, an institution that's been in a place for, 100 years. You can sort of acknowledge that, we have value to provide to a community, and we can do that sort of detached from that place. Just, kind of all the things that you said about like, today's world, like institutions, the instruction, the operation, and all these things can be done, done well virtually. And then AI is just continuing to make things more efficient and effective and all of that. So I think, trying to think through, like, again, just, and all of this, I guess, being even like kind of on a spectrum or sort of, it could be where it's like, okay, we do really have some unique assets and value in our physical place, but like maybe we start to kind of, detaching some of the like kind of operational pieces or different things so that the back house can be a little bit more not, sort of place bound to allow us to kind of just get a little bit more flexibility. Because I think it is just the physical footprint is weighing down some institutions, and just being kind of open-minded about like, how are you utilizing the physical spaces that you have? And then like, do we need all of these physical spaces for all,
Right.
the faculty, staff, and, whatever else. So I think it's all just hopefully stuff that folks are kind of, swirling in their minds. They're sort of ideating and can kind of sit with as they're moving forward. But we'll wrap up as we always do. If you just kind of want to of whatever sort of top of mind advice that you would give to other higher ed leaders navigating this moment right now.
Well, I do think that it's important to try and think outside of the box and be innovative. And as you were talking about mergers, I think there will be more and more sharing of resources in the back, purchasing together. But in terms of merging two institutions with their missions and their curriculum, that I know that's happening a lot, but it isn't easy, and somebody always feels like their mission has been diluted somewhat. So I would say, even in a rural area, if the land is not going to be help you to sell it, I do think sharing and merging in that way, partnering in that way with, well, we don't need this land right now, but who could use it? Would a company like to come in and build one of their buildings there, and we can lease the land to them? I think people who have that kind of resource need to use it in a way that's different from the way it's always been used in the past. When you think about our campuses across the country, they're large, by and large, in terms of land size, and that land could probably be used much more efficiently.
Good advice, and appreciate you just coming on the show to share your reflections and your insights and how you've been navigating this moment and this unique arrangement. It's really interesting stuff, I know, and I just appreciate kind of getting to explore it a little bit with you and like several ways to connect with you and read more about this in the show notes and description for this episode. But just appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing all that you did.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly in your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.